Instead of immediately reacting to criticism, rejection, conflict, or emotional tension, you become curious about your internal response. You begin asking, why did this affect me so strongly? This pause creates the foundation for emotional regulation. You understand your need for boundaries. Self-aware empaths realize that empathy without boundaries can become emotional exhaustion. They learn that caring about someone doesn't mean taking responsibility for their emotions, problems, or choices. A highly self-aware empath begins to understand something that can change the way they experience almost every relationship. Not every emotion you feel belongs to you. This may sound simple, but for someone who is deeply sensitive to other people, it can be surprisingly difficult to recognize. When you are naturally attentive to facial expressions, changes in tone, body language, an emotional atmosphere, your nervous system may respond to the emotional states of the people around you before you have consciously identified what is happening. Imagine walking into a room and immediately sensing that someone is upset. You may notice yourself becoming anxious, withdrawn, or emotionally heavy. Without realizing it, you might assume something is wrong with me. But self-awareness invites a different question. Did this feeling begin inside me, or did I notice it after entering this emotional environment? That small moment of curiosity is important. It creates psychological distance between the emotion and your identity. Instead of becoming completely absorbed in the feeling, you begin observing it. You might say to yourself, I feel anxious right now, but I need to understand why. Perhaps you were already worried about something, or perhaps you were calm until you encountered someone else's distress. The ability to notice this difference is a central part of emotional intelligence. This doesn't mean that highly self-aware empaths become detached or stop caring. Quite the opposite. They often become more compassionate because they can remain emotionally present without becoming emotionally overwhelmed. They can sit with another person's sadness without believing they must carry it. They can recognize anger without immediately becoming angry themselves. Over time, this awareness changes the way they respond. Instead of automatically absorbing every emotion around them, they pause. They observe, they reflect, and they make a conscious choice about what deserves their emotional energy. The goal is not to build a wall between yourself and others. The goal is to develop a healthy boundary within yourself, a quiet awareness that says, I can understand what you're feeling, I can care about what you're going through, but I don't have to lose myself inside your emotions. One of the clearest signs of growing self-awareness is the ability to notice your emotional triggers before they completely take control of your behavior. For many people, an emotional reaction happens so quickly that there is almost no space between what happens and how they respond. Someone makes a critical comment and immediately you feel defensive. Someone becomes distant and you suddenly feel rejected. A conversation becomes tense and before you know it, you are angry, anxious, or overwhelmed. But emotional intelligence begins to create a small space between the trigger and the response. A highly self-aware empath learns to recognize that space. They begin noticing the physical and emotional signals that appear before a reaction takes over. Perhaps the heart begins to beat faster. The muscles become tense. The mind starts creating assumptions. You may feel the urge to explain yourself, withdraw, argue, or make everything right immediately. These signals are not failures. They are information. The important question becomes, what is this reaction trying to tell me? Maybe the criticism reminds you of an earlier experience of being judged. Maybe someone's silence activates a fear of abandonment. Maybe conflict makes you uncomfortable because you learned early in life that emotional tension was unsafe. The present moment may be real, but the intensity of your reaction may be connected to something deeper. Self-awareness allows you to investigate that connection rather than simply acting on it. This is where emotional regulation becomes possible. You don't have to deny your emotions, and you don't have to pretend that something doesn't hurt. Instead, you learn to acknowledge the feeling without immediately obeying it. You might think, I'm feeling threatened right now. Let me understand why before I respond. That pause can change everything. It gives the more reflective parts of the mind an opportunity to become involved before the emotional reaction becomes behavior. And for an empath, this is especially valuable because sensitivity can sometimes make emotional experiences feel intense and immediate. The goal isn't to become someone who never gets triggered. That's unrealistic. The goal is to become someone who recognizes the trigger sooner, understands what it is connected to, and chooses a response that reflects who they want to be, not simply what they feel in that moment. One of the most important signs of emotional self-awareness is learning to understand the role of boundaries in your relationships. For a deeply empathetic person, this can be difficult because caring often feels natural. When someone you love is struggling, your instinct may be to step in, listen, help, or even try to carry some of their pain for them. But there is a difference between being emotionally present for someone and becoming responsible for their emotional life. A self-aware empath gradually learns that compassion does not require self-abandonment. You can care about someone's sadness without making it your own. You can listen to someone's problems without feeling that you must solve them. You can support someone through a difficult moment without allowing their emotional state to determine your entire day. This is where healthy boundaries become an important part of emotional intelligence. Sometimes the absence of boundaries comes from a sincere desire to help. But underneath that desire, there may also be a fear of disappointing others, being rejected, or feeling guilty. You may say yes when you want to say no because you can already imagine how the other person will feel. You may continue giving your time and energy even when you are emotionally exhausted because their needs seem more important than your own. Self-awareness allows you to notice this pattern. You begin asking yourself, am I helping because I genuinely choose to or because I feel responsible for someone else's emotions? That question can reveal a great deal about the relationship you have with yourself. A healthy boundary is not a punishment. It is not a rejection of another person. It is a form of clarity. It allows you to say, I care about you, but I cannot carry this for you. And sometimes that may be one of the most compassionate things you can do, because when empathy is combined with boundaries, it becomes sustainable. You are able to remain caring without becoming depleted. You can be available without being consumed. And you begin to understand that protecting your emotional energy does not make you less compassionate. It allows you to offer compassion from a place of stability rather than exhaustion. Perhaps the greatest lesson in becoming a highly self-aware empath is realizing that your sensitivity is not something you need to escape from. It's something you need to understand. Your ability to notice emotions, to sense what others may be experiencing, and to respond with compassion can become a remarkable strength, but only when it is guided by self-awareness. The more you understand yourself, the less likely you are to become lost in the emotions of others. You begin to recognize what belongs to you and what does not. You notice your triggers before they control your reactions. You learn that boundaries are not walls, but healthy spaces that allow compassion to exist without exhaustion. And perhaps most importantly, you discover that you can care deeply for others while still caring for yourself. Emotional intelligence is not about becoming less emotional. It is about becoming more aware of your emotions so they can inform you without controlling you. It is the ability to pause, reflect, and choose your response with greater wisdom. So if you recognize yourself in these signs, remember this: your sensitivity can be a gift, but your self-awareness is what helps you use that gift wisely. You don't have to absorb every emotion around you. You don't have to fix every person who is hurting. And you don't have to lose yourself in order to prove that you care. Take time to understand your inner world. Listen to your emotions, but also question them. Protect your energy, honor your boundaries, and allow yourself the same compassion you so naturally offer to others. Thank you for spending this time with me and for being willing to look a little deeper into yourself. I hope you continue to grow in self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and compassion, not only for the people around you, but also for yourself. Take care of your mind, protect your inner peace, and never stop learning about the person you are becoming. I wish you clarity in your thoughts, balance in your emotions, strength in your boundaries, and peace in your journey. Good luck, take care of yourself, and thank you for listening.